Today, I'd like to share 6 tips to strengthen your board's collective effectiveness and competence. This will enable you to enhance trust, cohesion, and strategic impact within your board. What we're really talking about today is ways of doing better together as a group, as a board. If you feel that your board could go further, but you do not believe that the answer is simply to hold more meetings, this might be of interest to you. Let's talk about how to do better together. Remembering that effectiveness and collective competence don't come from the amount of experience around the table necessarily, but from how people learn, act, and evaluate together. What do we mean when we talk about enhancing the board's collective effectiveness and competence? We're talking about the board's ability to ensure efficient and effective functioning of its activities. To do this, the board must maintain a shared understanding of its governance model, a high level of knowledge of the organization's operating sector, and of the beneficiaries and clienteles it serves. So let's dive into ways of doing this. How do you strengthen the board's effectiveness and competency? Well, by maintaining a high level of governance competence among directors. So governance is something to be learned and continuously nurtured. Even experienced directors can benefit from revisiting the principles of accountability, sound risk management, and strategic deliberation. How do you do this? By taking part, for example, in ongoing governance training as a group, and maybe by creating short learning moments during meetings. For example, you could spend 10 or 15 minutes as a group revisiting a key governance concept to ensure that everyone understands it and sees it the same way. Another way to increase your board's effectiveness is to maintain a high level of competence in the organization's operating sector. Understanding the sector in which your nonprofit works or operates, its economic dynamics, and operational challenges enables the board to ask the right questions. How can you do this? By organizing field immersion sessions like site visits, partner presentations, or even meetings with frontline employees. Staying up to date through industry readings or expert reports can also be another way to ensure that your board is competent in the organization's operating sector. The next tip is maintain a high level of knowledge about the clientele served. A board that loses touch with its clients and beneficiaries quickly loses its strategic relevance, or maybe I should say can quickly lose its strategic relevance. What you can do as a board here is to include presentations from clients, members, or beneficiaries at some meetings. You can also make sure that you're regularly reviewing satisfaction survey results so that your board really has a deep understanding of the evolving needs and trends in your clientele and beneficiaries for the organization. This one is really important. Holding effective meetings focused on the board's priorities. I can't really think of a better way to ensure your board is as efficient as possible. It's by holding effective meetings. The quality of a meeting often reflects the maturity of the board. Too often, boards spend about 80% of their time listening to reports and receiving information, and only 20% debating strategic issues. I have a few tips for you here. So how can you do this? How can you hold effective meetings that are really focused on the board's priorities? Well, you can use structured agendas that are really aligned along 3 blocks: information, discussion, and decision. Allocate at least 50% of meeting time to the strategic questions. Decisions, questions, or discussions that are centered around the organization's strategy. You can also allot a certain amount of time to each discussion. It says here a timekeeper or timing system. What I mean here is just keeping track of how long you want to spend on each item on the agenda. This usually helps boards really decipher what is most important in today's meeting and what is most relevant for board decision making in accordance with our mission and our strategy, of course. The other one would be preparation for participation in board activities. Everything we've talked about so far to increase your board's effectiveness and efficiency has been focused around things you can do as a group. I cannot stress enough, though, that the collective competence of the board begins with individual preparation. By ensuring that you read the materials in advance as an individual on the board, by making sure that you identify points to clarify, and by preparing one or two key questions based on the information that was provided for preparing for a board meeting, you will be more prepared for discussions and therefore contribute to the board's effectiveness. Come ready to contribute, not just to listen. This will allow for cultivation of active curiosity, always seeking, as a director or an officer on the board, to understand and not to judge. You can see here, I'm going to laugh at myself a little bit. I forgot to replace a French word with the English word. Use practical tools for evaluation is really what I want to talk to you about on this slide. Foster a culture of continuous improvement within the board by evaluating your board regularly. Without evaluation and awareness of possible areas of improvement, progress is unlikely. Conduct an annual evaluation of the board, use simple tools, and collectively identify ways of moving the board forward. I'm going to go into my favorite section of all of these little trainings that we do and share with you a pitfall. One of them, the first one, is relying on individual experience without sustaining collective competence. The risk here is when a board relies mainly on each director's individual experience, it can create an illusion of collective competence. Each person around the table brings strong and important expertise, but without deliberate alignment, those skills add up without necessarily complementing each other. The tip here is to take part as a group, regardless of the levels of expertise around the table, in ongoing governance training. Governance training that is tailored to your organization's sector and to the experience level of your board members. The impact here is that by nurturing collective competence, the board strengthens not only its cohesion and mutual trust, but it will most likely improve the quality of your deliberations, ultimately improve the quality of your decisions as well. The second pitfall here is holding meetings that are focused on information rather than strategic reflection. The risk is reducing the board to an information receiving body instead of a space for strategic value creation. When most of your meeting time is spent listening to reports or presentations, directors can become passive and discussions can lose momentum. Therefore, collective reflection on strategic issues can suffer. The tip here is to limit one-way presentations by encouraging visual summaries or written reports, concise written reports to review before the meeting, therefore freeing up time for real discussion and reflection during the meeting. The impact is board meetings that cease to be an administrative ritual and that become a space for shared intelligence, where the mission and the strategy really takes center stage. Cultivating effectiveness means cultivating trust. Remember that collective competence at the board level grows like a high-performing team through preparation, communication, and continuous learning. So are you ready to visit your board's practices? If so, I'd like to leave you with one last tip. Start with just one area to improve and watch how it really changes your group dynamic.